Thanks very much. And I was just reflecting in being part of your AGM, because I like to see how organisations really work, and you always see it at the AGM. And two immediate things come to mind. First of all, your finances might face an immediate dip because of events, but they'll recover and grow and prosper. That might be just like the independent Scotland as well. And secondly, when faced with constitutional difficulties, you just work round the rules to get what you really want. Another lesson I'll be taking back to the Parliament and to the office. I'm sorry I can't stay for the rest of the day. I have to attend the National Economic Forum, apparently, according to my briefing notes, chair a group. So that will be interesting in the event after this, because it's, of course, significant to the economic well-being of Scotland. But I appreciate the invitation to come along and speak to you this morning, to the Economic Development Association Scotland. Recognise the networks that you've created and the momentum that you've built, and that's very helpful as we all work together in partnership to deliver a more successful Scotland. Now, we firmly believe that the people who care most about Scotland have the biggest stake in our country's success, and it's those people that are best placed to take decisions about Scotland's future. That is, the people who live, work, study and operate businesses here. And we believe that putting decision-making in the hands of the people of Scotland will deliver huge benefits for us all, both from a social and an economic perspective. In my speech today, I wish to outline the positive case for independence and highlight just some of the additional opportunities that will create for both business and individuals. And I want to highlight three things in particular. First of all, the strength of Scotland's economy. Secondly, the impact of devolution and even within the constraints of our limited powers, how we've been able to progress the agenda and tackle the historic gap in economic performance within the UK. And finally, show how the powers of independence can allow us to do more to pursue that more resilient, dynamic and fairer economic model, a model that could be designed to deliver prosperity for all. In terms of Scotland's current economic strengths, that we know that by international standards, Scotland is a wealthy and productive economy. Even excluding North Sea oil and gas, output per head in Scotland was the third highest of the UK countries and regions in 2012, behind only London and the South East. Now, including a geographic share of North Sea oil, Scotland would have been the 14th highest levels in terms of GDP per capita in the OECD. That's ranked 4 places higher than the UK. So for those that say Scotland can't afford to be independent, what does that say about the UK using the same analysis? But we have thriving growth sectors such as food and drink, life sciences, creative industries, tourism, financial services, and we could name many others. And of course, we're blessed with immense natural resources as well as the wealth of human talent also. Now, we produce 6 times our current demand for oil and 3 times our demand for gas, and we have extraordinary potential in renewable energy as we turn to the transition to a low-carbon economy, and that totals a quarter of Europe's offshore wind and tidal potential. Now, we have more top universities per head of population than any other country in the world, so Scotland has the financial strength to be a successful independent country. Not necessarily better than others, but certainly no worse, and very well placed to be a very productive country. An interesting fact is that Scottish Government, UK Government agree on this. Scotland does have the finances to be a successful independent country. Again, if we exclude oil and gas revenues, if they're taken out of Scotland's national accounts, then on tax revenues per head, we're broadly in line with the UK as a whole. So oil and gas is very much the bonus. And when that's accounted for, it equates to Scotland generated 9.1% of UK tax, with 8.3% of the population. That's an assessment in 12-13. But over the last 5 years, Scotland generated an average 9.5% of UK tax, accounting for 9.3% of total UK public expenditure. In fact, Scotland has raised more in tax per head than the UK for every single one of the last 33 years, and our projections for public finances also show that in 2016-17, the first year of an independent Scotland in the event of a yes vote, Scotland will be in a stronger position than that of the G7, and its debt will be falling as a share of GDP. So strong foundations on which to build an independent country. Now, in terms of progress that's been made, even with devolution, we think that the Parliament's powers has given governments and Parliament the ability to tailor some policies more closely to the priorities and needs of Scottish business and industry, as well, of course, our communities, and we're very focused on the sustainability of Scotland's public finances, and that's why we had a very specific approach to the Christie Commission. And we are sure that with that strong track record since devolution, we've been able to prove and build confidence in the institutions of Scotland that can take us forward with progress to independence. Very much been the case from this Scottish Government that through the more difficult economic times we've had an investment-led recovery, boosting employment, creating economic opportunity for Scotland's young people, not just with the appointment of Europe's only youth employment minister, but a whole range of economic measures. But in terms of that investment-led recovery, a number of schemes, a number of innovative finance models have helped deliver that new investment, many of which are in the pipeline, many are being delivered. But £8 billion of infrastructure investment, I think, has been very welcome. That's over the period 2014-15 and 15-16. It's been a very targeted approach using capital receipts, capital budgets, switching resource to capital, the NPD pipeline, rail investment through the Networks Rail Regulatory Asset Base, and the borrowing powers in 15-16, of course, are approaching. But I think a clear difference can be identified in the area of education and skills between UK Government and Scottish Government's approach. We hold true to our principles on free hire and further education and the retention of the education maintenance allowance, creating guaranteed opportunities for young people into work, employment or training, and our very successful modern apprenticeship scheme, I think, has saved many young people from that scenario of a lost generation. Modern apprenticeships, we committed to over 30,000. And as I say, we're very much delivering on that pledge. Our agencies, Scottish Enterprise and Highlands and Islands Enterprise, and our institutions are focusing on the key growth sectors, and I think with some substantial success. And even during the debate on Scotland's constitutional future, we've continued to attract record levels of foreign direct investment as well. So on these economic indicators, we're doing fairly well. Now, coming from the west of Scotland, some folk would say that's no bad. Incidentally, that's the highest accolade you can get in the west of Scotland. And that's with the tools at our disposal. And clearly, we believe we can do more. And to give credit to previous administrations as well, since the creation of the Parliament, say, with better, greater ability to adapt policies to our circumstances in Scotland, we can identify that since 1999, GVA per head on a workplace basis has increased from the 5th highest of countries and regions in the UK to the 3rd highest, just behind London in the south east. Productivity in Scotland has improved from 4% below the UK level to 1% above the UK level in 2012, and full-time weekly pay has increased from 5% below the UK levels to within 2%. And Scotland's employment rate, crucially, has moved from a position of 2.6% below the UK to 0.5% higher than the UK equivalent figure. So I'm trying to present a case that having the ability to make these decisions is clearly making a difference, addressing the divergence and the gap that we've previously endured. And it's been through specific policies. Take the changing demography of our country or the migration issues as well. We've tailored specific migration policies to suit our circumstances, recognising it's different here from other parts of these islands. And partly as a consequence of that, Scotland's population has grown by 5% between 2000 and 2013, reversing a generational trend between 1971 and 2001, where our population actually fell by 171,000 people. So diversity and divergence is necessary when it comes to economic policies, when our demands and our pressures and our opportunities indeed differ. So good economic evidence, we believe, to go further, showing that we can deliver and Scotland can work. Now, my own position as Minister for Local Government and Planning, I've seen it firsthand, that national impact and that local impact as well, where local authorities and the planning departments, economic development units and other public sector partners work together to deliver economic growth on the ground as well. And as a government, despite the economic challenges we face, we've also made a priority of protecting local authority budgets as well, whilst removing that ring fencing to create the environment in which local authorities can determine local priorities. Now, some of those partnership approaches have led to very significant investments in local economic development and the services that are provided. And of course, I would continue to commend the work of Business Gateway, delivered at a local level as a key economic channel for those seeking to have new starts of local businesses. Business Gateway supports over 10,000 businesses a year to start up and provides that range of ongoing help and support. I'd also commend the work of the Scottish Local Authorities Economic Development Group. It's laid and it's estimated they've identified some 661 economic development projects across the local public sector. We estimate a total cost or total investment of some £163 million, and for every £1 invested by councils, another £1 equivalent for that has been levered in from other sources, showing the creativity at local level. Back to the national connection, shortly, next week, I'll launch the National Planning Framework, the revised Scottish Planning Policy, and these are just some examples of how we set out the vision of what we can do with the powers at our disposal. A range of other initiatives in my own portfolio would include the Fresh Start initiative and the commitments around the Town Centre Action Plan. National Planning Framework 3 is the government's spatial expression of our economic strategy, bringing together a range of other investment priorities. Within that, identifies the key priorities for us: transition to a low-carbon economy, a natural, resilient place, a connected place, and a place absolutely where people want to do business, and very much look forward to that launch. I'm very mindful that many people outside Scotland also see it as something of an investment document, so it's very significant. Allied to that will be revised Scottish planning policy, which will include a presumption in favour of sustainable development, attaching greater weight to economic impact and the consideration of planning applications, giving due weight to economic impact, around pillars of planning reform, a plan-led system, simplification and streamlining, improved performance in delivering development on the ground, making the connections right across economic development and planning and other government priorities. In terms of business rates, of course, you'll understand it's one of the few economic levers that the government currently has. And we have strived to ensure that Scotland's at a competitive advantage in both matching the poundage with England's been a manifesto commitment delivered, creating the most generous package of business rates released on any part of these islands, now totalling some £590 million, and launching new rates reliefs as well, again tailored to incentivise the economic activity, such as Fresh Start, which is about unlocking potential in currently unoccupied properties. As well as that, we've expanded small business bonus, with now a record 92,000 businesses benefiting from the small business bonus, of course first launched in 2008. So we want to support the diversification of our high streets, and we use these business rates incentivisation schemes to try and support that, and further opportunities will come forward in the Community Empowerment Scotland Bill as well. So we believe we have put Scotland at a competitive advantage to the rest of the UK. And there'll be clear principles around the Town Centre Action Plan as well. The Government's Town Centre Action Plan was published on the 7th of November, coming from the External Advisory Group's report on town centres. We appreciate the work that's gone on there. Of course, that will require principles and practice and partnership with local authorities to assist us to ensure that there's delivery on the ground, but that approach will reach out to the private sector and communities as well, and connect communities with the future and the vibrancy of their town centres in a way that maybe we missed an opportunity to do so in the past. Diversification of our town centres, some of them have to find their unique selling points and and take advantage of that. But crucially, a new town centre first principle across all key stakeholders will make a difference for our town centres, where the public sector has to think about the use of its assets and its decisions and the support of those town centres going forward. So as I say, we want to reconnect with our communities in the delivery of that action plan. Now finally, on the economic case for independence, because I want to leave time for questions as well. I think we've made the case, and the Scottish Government will always support the furtherance of all Scottish interests, and we believe that we're in a better place to make the right decisions for Scotland. We spoke about the foundations that Scotland starts with in terms of being a well-endowed country, in terms of resources, and with more powers, then we could be able to do so much more. And we've got to safeguard the progress that we've made and now advance. Taking a look at comparable nations, independent nations, many of them perform better than Scotland, not only economically, but across a broad range of indicators, including equality and well-being as well. One that comes to mind is Norway, of course, with the massive investment savings that they have for their nation, and the assessment of happiness. Now, civil servants can try and inform me as to how you assess happiness. I'm not too sure, but on those indicators, Norway is a good example of some of the well-being indicators that do suggest that there is more to life than just GDP. But in Scotland's future, we set out a plan on how we would create the opportunities to build economic security using the additional powers that independence would bring. Independence, of course, would bring the opportunity to move away from the economic model and the system that has concentrated jobs and opportunities in London and the southeast of England. So we believe that independence would very much be a rebalancing mechanism for these islands. An economy, of course, in terms of the UK, that's consistently run up trade deficits and which has been a bigger decline in manufacturing than our competitors, it could be tackled. With independence, we'd have control over additional economic levers, a wider range of flexibility that could be used to deliver both economic growth, resilience, fairness, opportunity, and that sustainability that we would all seek, and that ability to harness our natural resources and wealth of human talent once again. Having established that Scotland is one of the richest energy nations in the world, then we must continue to innovate to deliver on our renewables potential, and with the academic expertise that we have, put that to good use. And I was very mindful when I met the Global Managing Director of McKinsey Consulting. In terms of global trends, he thought that Scotland was well placed, not just because of our resources, but how we make efficient, intelligent use of our resources. And the tools and methodologies and the capacity we've got could be used the world over, because Scotland has a very well-established global brand that could be put to good effect in terms of resources and their intelligent use with our key educational institutions. But there's no point just having these assets. They must be broadcast around the world, and that's why in our reindustrialisation paper we talk about how we could use the new commercial centres that we could have across the world, our equivalent of embassies, to export that which we produce and that which we could do. Now, we see industry and business as one of the key assets of our country, built on our core strength and our ability to innovate, adapt and prosper in today's global economy, in specific growth areas as well, such as food and drink and renewable energy that I've touched upon. And by creating that vibrant business climate based on increased participation and employment in an industrial strategy, we can secure those aims of investment and innovation, of skills development, fairness and equality, a more efficient policy in terms of tax regulation and competition as well, to further create the dynamo that we require in the self-fulfilling policies. And a whole suite of policies now can set out how we can deliver on that strategy, such as what we've produced on building economic stability and creating economic opportunity in the recently published Reindustrialisation Scotland paper. They all build on these key themes with the powers that come with independence. Now, we do believe in a strengthened role for manufacturing as well. It's suffered at the hands of successive UK governments, but we do believe it has a strong future in Scotland, and specific measures could support manufacturing, such as increasing investment in innovation. And if we tackle it appropriately, we can tackle the geographic inequalities that exist in Scotland as well, encouraging exports and providing even more high-value jobs. Now, there are immense benefits in supporting manufacturing, and that's why the Scottish Government believes the UK approach has been wrong. By aligning our policies in a coherent and joined-up way, these measures can realise the target we have now set for an independent Scotland to increase manufacturing output, GVA, by 30% in real terms. Now, an effective use of our powers to create the competitive business tax climate for all businesses would go some way, as we've done for small businesses, we can do for large businesses as well. And to tackle some of what's perceived to be a geographic disadvantage of Scotland, changes to air passenger duty scheme would also increase our connectivity and boost trade and tourism as well. Targeted tax credits, if we had the power, could be used to encourage new exporters and to help small companies gain a foothold in key emerging markets. And a focus on innovation brings many benefits, and that's why we would propose the establishment of Innovation Agency. In my mind, another attractive option to drive that innovation and align to business ecosystem in Scotland. We propose between 70 to 90 international offices, building on SDI's existing network that combine trade and investment experts and diplomats to develop export markets for Scottish companies and attract further investment to Scotland. So these are just some of the measures that we would undertake to expand Scotland's business base. In terms of other pressures we face, like many other advanced economies, ageing population is but one. In terms of these pressures, we know that if we have the status quo or the current UK system, that will not be tackled. We've had both industrial decline and more challenges in Scotland's population. How we propose to tackle some of these challenges is through increased participation in the workplace, better productivity and employment opportunities, and subsequently economic growth and increased tax revenues for the public sector. And transforming childcare is one such key area that could deliver substantial change. And the policy to look at boosting participation by removing the costly barrier to employment, childcare, and more people entering the labour market would create that virtuous cycle of growth and investment supporting higher tax revenues which can be reinvested. But to do that, the Scottish Government has to have access to both sides of the balance sheet, not currently available to us in the status quo, and even with some of the recommendations from other parties as it stands, we still wouldn't be able to deliver that policy in the way that we propose. So we have to create the right link between the policies and the income and the receipts to be able to truly deliver and create that skilled workforce that's such an asset for Scotland. But so too, we must retain our population and retain our skilled workers as well. We also have a very specific targeted approach on migration, and retention of people as well is also significant, expanding the educational employment opportunities in our country. And we do think it was wrong of the UK Government to make the changes that they did to the post-study work visa in Scotland, which has been an unnecessary disadvantage. And we would make the right connections once again to ensure that young professionals with a real connection to the country can continue to stay in Scotland. So it's not just about attracting new people to Scotland, as important as that is, but to tackle the outward migration issue as well, which we know is a key challenge. So in terms of financial impact, our recent publications have set out how the key drivers of economic growth, productivity, employment and population growth can act individually and cumulatively to increase fiscal revenues and therefore help improve the long-term debt position faced by most, if not all, developed nations, and bringing down debt as a proportion of GDP. As I said earlier, Scotland is in a stronger position than our UK counterparts. But while such predictions only provide an indication of how Scotland's public finances could evolve under different scenarios and assumptions, they do demonstrate the potential impact and importance of specific policy approaches and how that in turn improves economic performance and our overall fiscal position. Including work on the tax and regulatory systems, we believe they can be simplified and streamlined with the interests of the consumer at its heart as well. Both the Institute for Fiscal Studies and our Fiscal Commission working group have highlighted how independence would provide the opportunity to redesign the current complex and costly UK tax system. So we do believe that there are major advantages in a more efficient system of taxation. So these are just some of the opportunities that become available to us with the powers of independence. We've made great gains with devolution. They should be safeguarded as we advance to the full levers of control, economic control and prosperity that would come with independence. And now I'm more than happy to take your questions. Thank you very much.